No!
Welcome into the DGD Podcast. I'm Robert. That's Kobe. Kobe, Saturday was very interesting, sir. 3 turnovers, and you still win by 2 scores. 34-20 over Florida.
In the moment, was upset the way the game was going. I think a lot of us can be that way. I'm sure a lot of us, kind of watched the game with some questions. I have some questions, but you take 2-score wins against your oldest and biggest rival 10 times out of 10. I'll take winning by 14. I hate that we throw 3 picks. I think if you really break it down, one of them in particular is just extremely ugly. One of them is extremely lucky for Florida, and then one of them's kind of in the in-between. The lucky one, can't do anything about. The first one, it's an aggressive throw. I'd like to think 50% of the time he completes that pass instead of the DB leaking back into the throwing range. I think it's the second one that a lot of us have the biggest issue with. I mean, the second one's into triple coverage. Just looks like you don't see the guy at all. But hey, Dawgs kind of keep rolling. Are there some flaws? Yes. You had a chance to prove that you can fix some things against Ole Miss this week. So it is what it is, but 14 points against the Gators, I will not be personally complaining anytime we beat, Billy Napier and the Florida Gators.
Kobe, you did an excellent job transitioning into what we're talking about tonight. Obviously, we're going to recap the Florida game. We're going to talk about the initial college football playoff rankings that just came out earlier tonight. And Georgia got a commit today, while also over the weekend flipping another one from another rival. So we're going to talk about those guys. Ronaldo does say Georgia's staying hot on the recruiting trail. We're going to talk about that. First things first, though. The show is sponsored by our guys over at Alumni Hall. Do yourself a favor. Get yourself geared up. Kobe, you know where they are because you're right there in Athens right now, too. Go in store, mention the podcast, right, and get 10% off your order. Or if you can't make it in the stores, you can also go online, go to our website, dgdpodcast.com. Go shop Alumni Hall. Just scroll down, click on the button. You'll see the Alumni Hall logo. Click that, and you can shop their website through our website as well. Doing so gets you 8% going to the Classic City Collective on behalf of us. So do yourself a favor, get geared up with all licensed Georgia gear, by the way, too. Everything's licensed, so it's all legit stuff. But do yourself a favor, go shop at our friends over at Alumni Hall. Thank you for supporting the show. It's very interesting. High Toff over here saying tie game with a few minutes left versus our third stringer quarterback. Let's not sugarcoat this. I want to preface this because, yes, they did have their third string quarterback go out or come back in because of the Lagway injury. And it kind of, to me, Kobe, when that happened, I felt like the air just got taken out of the game for them. But at the same time, to me, Lagway, before he went down, there was a touchdown pass, and that was really it in regards to him moving the ball, right? They were moving it, but I still think before he went down, we were managing very well. So I'm sitting here. I'm not saying, obviously, we can't say what would have happened because we don't know. He went down with 5 minutes left in the first half. We don't know. However, what I do know is, and Kobe, you know this for damn sure, you got to continue to play the game. That's why you prepare, and that's why you recruit, because depth matters. Obviously, quarterback's a little bit trickier, right? Because that is a super important, hard position to recruit in regards to quality depth, and it really matters. But at the same time, it's not Georgia's fault. So you just have to continue to play the game. Am I disagreeing with you totally?
Yeah, I look at it. My man had 2 completions, I think, before he went out injured. It's not like he was 17 for 17, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yes, they were moving the ball. Yes, they had scored some, but I mean, a lot of that's off turnovers. He goes down. I think the biggest surprise, and knock on wood, I'm glad he's okay. But man, he went down. For all of you that kind of know me off the show, wife's in medical school, third-year medical student. We're watching with her, a couple of her classmates, all third-year, future doctors, and he slips, grabs that hamstring. The way they pick him up, the way they cart him off, a couple of the guys are like, he probably just tore that hamstring off the bone. Like, that's probably going to be surgery tonight, season ending kind of thing. I was amazed on, I think, Monday post-practice. Billy Napier's like, oh, yeah, not near as bad as we thought it was. He could play this weekend.
I thought that was crazy to think. Just because when you watched it, right, when you watched it in real time, right, you could see when the injury happened. And I was like, that's not good. I think a lot of people can attest to that. So to hear that Monday was literally a 180, because even at the halftime, he was saying that it was pretty significant. Yeah. So you're hearing 2 different sides of the story. And listen, as a Gator hater, I still wished well for the kid and his health. You have to, right? You don't like injuries.
I don't wish season-ending injuries on anyone.
Unless you're Tennessee fans, then they'll say that. But either way, that's neither here nor there. Yes, they caught a stray. They deserve it. But no. We look at this right here, and I think there was something interesting, right? We talked about the turnovers. Kobe, you brought them up. We could break these down a little bit more too. However, what if I told you that Georgia, on average, is scoring more when he has multiple picks compared to when he doesn't? Would you believe me?
Yeah, I would. It just because I've seen it too, but I have to think that something is skewing that. I would have to think maybe Kentucky. I'm not sure if he had any turnovers against Kentucky, but I would think that
I don't know either. Honestly,
game has to be skewing that, because it is unbelievable. I think obviously the Alabama game is helping trend that into the multiple turnover category. Obviously, we scored a lot of points. He had a lot of turnovers. It's a crazy stat. I saw something on Twitter today too. It was like Carson Beck's the first quarterback in NCAA history to have 2 or more turnovers in 3 games that he won, or something like that. I mean, something crazy. Like the fact that he's thrown 3 picks or had 3 turnovers and he's won all 3 games, or I think he's 3-1 in those games, is just kind of a crazy thing to think about. It just shows you how good this defense is, and honestly how opportune this offense is. And I think that's what's really frustrating, is like, it seems like when the pressure gets tough on this offense, they kind of kick it into a gear. And I think we all know that great teams are in that gear from the start. I think that's where, you get up for a Texas game, you get up for a Clemson game, we're kind of smacking people around a little bit. You throw us a Kentucky who we're supposed to beat, a Florida who we're supposed to beat, and all of a sudden it's like we're a little slow off the block. So I'm ready, to see us start fast, go fast, continue fast. It was about this time last year. We did it to Kentucky at home. We did it to an Ole Miss at home. It's going to be one of those things where you go to Ole Miss, you're going to have to start fast. You're going to have to kind of put their light out, because otherwise Lane Kiffin and the gang are going to try to ruin your hopes.
I mean, they're land sharks for a reason. They will attack on that. If they smell blood, they will go for it. Simple enough. It's just, I don't think there's any other way to put it. If we've known just how aggressive he is, right? And we'll might save it for later, but kind of a spoiler alert. You can't have this type of game if you're Carson Beck against Ole Miss on the road. I just don't see it boding well if you do. I just don't see a way, because they're too aggressive on offense. They'll make you pay. And they, I mean, I know Arkansas, they beat the bejesus out of Arkansas this past Saturday. Arkansas turned the ball over twice. They scored 14 points. I know it's only 2, which is small sample size, but at the same time, that's 100% conversion rate to points, and that matters, right? No, do you right? Genetics says Carson got hit hard in the UK game a couple of times. He thinks that he hasn't been right since. Something's going on. I don't. There was some play. I want to let it be known too. The entirety of the game is not problematic, right? There were times where he was hitting passes, right? It's just a few decisions that everybody wants to look at, and rightfully so. That caused 3 turnovers. You see what I'm saying? There were also several times.
I think I agree with you. I think the hardest thing this year has been kind of like I broke down earlier, interceptions that are 100% Carson's fault, interceptions that are 50-50 balls that I'm happy he's throwing and giving a chance, and then interceptions that are just not his fault whatsoever. The interception in Kentucky, the third one, the interception against Florida, the third one, not his fault whatsoever. The tunnel screen interception, almost pick 6 against Alabama, not his fault whatsoever. There are a couple of those that kind of float around. The one against Alabama that he has Lawson Lucky open, it overthrows him just a little bit. Lawson tips it up into the air. It kind of leans on the 50-50. It's a touchdown if he hits him in stride. It's an interception instead. I think that we went from a guy that let it rip to a guy that we were having checked down a lot to a guy that's almost gone off the other end of like letting it rip at all times. The hard thing is right now is who do you throw it to, though? I think that's still the thing that I'm going back to in the route concepts and some of the, who's open? Who can you count on? Between the drops, people not consistently getting open, who are you looking to? It's 3rd and 4.
It's also the miscommunication too, right? Because if you remember, this was the first time, if I'm not mistaken, I can recall correctly, this was the first time, especially in the Florida game, that I saw him visibly frustrated. It was he checked it into a quick screen, but Dom Lovett runs the slant. So the lack of communication there, ultimately incompletion, honestly, but that quick screen though, right? With that quick get out, you know what I'm saying? If that hits, I think that's a hitter, and that's a big shot. I really do.
Yeah. And I guess what's frustrating too, especially at this point in Carson's career and who he's dealing with that, is you think about that and you think about the one Arian Smith in the Alabama game. Both those guys are senior leaders in your wide receiver room. Those are guys that have played a lot of ball. Dom Lovett has played a lot of ball in the SEC. A great year at Missouri, 2 years now at Georgia. Arian Smith's been here 5 years. They have been through a lot of practices, a lot of meetings. They sat through and watched a lot of film. For you to visibly signal a guy, and he repeats the signal back to him in a way, and then him still run the wrong route, it's just frustrating at this point in his career, in the season, stuff like that. It just makes you double think when you go, this ball's going to Dom. I hope he's doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Because I think for me, you can see that he doesn't have the rapport that he did last year with guys like Brock and Ladd, and this is something that Georgia fans knew was coming. You had to deal with life without those two, right? But there is this lack of connection. And that's the crucial thing for receivers and quarterbacks, right? Whether it be tight ends or receivers in that matter. Having that chemistry and a confidence, having those right there can go a very long way. And I just don't see that. I will say this. I do like what I'm seeing out of Arian. I feel like he's starting to build more confidence and more rapport with Arian, especially in crucial downs. And that's something that you're going to have to rely on. But I would feel more comfortable getting that second option comfortable too, right? If it's a matter of getting a tight end more involved, right? I feel like Jurasic, to start the season, I think a lot of people would say that he was just out of place. And so far, he's stood up to the call and he's worked and he saw his blocking get better. He's getting utilized in the pass game more. It just needs to be done quicker. I feel like we're this far along into the season. You would like to see that cohesion there. And just right now, it's not sitting right. And I think, I heard a lot of fans last year, Kobe, with him. You know how he started off very check down, right? And people were pissed off. People were like, throw the ball, let's attack vertically. We need to throw the ball, whatever. Now we're seeing them do that. And those same people want to kind of like, hey, check it back down. You can't have it both ways. It's a balance. You can't have it both ways.
I think it's kind of like do right or do you right said, don't put the ball in danger on first down. I think that's the issue is 1st and 10. It's not the time to force the ball. Throw it away, live another down. You still got 2 more downs to get 10 yards. Let's not go crazy here. 3rd and 9, you throw an interception on a deep ball, 45-yard pass down the field. Hey, man, that's like a punt. I ain't losing it. You throw that same ball on like a 25-yard out on first down, I'm losing it a little bit. I think kind of like you're saying about who do we lean on in the wide receiver room, who are we trusting with, Stanford tight end kind of coming alive. I think, like we've talked about, it's time. I love the rotation in the wide receiver room. I love the rotation in the O-line room early in the season. That's the key. But once you start getting into here, you're 8, 9, 10 games in, you've really got to kind of start picking away at who are my guys that need to give me more snaps, more reps. And then who are my guys that need to be in? If it's a screen and I know that Dom Lovett blocks his tail off, I need Dom Lovett being the one blocking. If I know Oscar Delp is a great perimeter blocker, I need Oscar Delp out there blocking. I don't need us throwing somebody out there that we're like, well, we think he can block. I understand it doesn't happen the same way.
You gotta know. I mean, you gotta know that though. I mean, I'm not necessarily. Listen,
I was just going to say my big thing is I think more than anything, I need people on the field that can catch the ball. It's why I joked with y'all on Saturday. What would Cash Jones look like in the slot? Like throw the man into the, line him up tight and throw him some routes. The guy can catch. Is he going to be a phenomenal wide receiver? Maybe not. But if you got to have 5 yards and you throw him the ball, he's going to catch the ball. And that's
he's definitely doing it out of the backfield right now for us too. I mean, he showed that Saturday.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's a 30 times a game kind of thing. I'm just saying that if you got to have players you can count on in the SEC, you got to look at your team and go, who can I count on? And if Cash Jones is one of those, you got to find a way to get him the ball, even if that's not at the running back position.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this right here. We've talked, and I feel like we've talked enough about I wouldn't say negativity, but Carson and issues, things like that. Honestly, I think it's a testament to the run game getting better as well. Tate played a little bit. I don't think he didn't start. Did come in for Micah. And I think Micah came back in. I think it seemed like Tate was playing on a snap count. But that's always a plus. I just think that our run game is getting better too. And I know with ETN going out for the rib injury, right, this was a game where Nate Frazier really stepped up, right? Hadn't been getting a lot of run and definitely answered the call. Right? I felt like he ran extremely hard. And that's the type of running that I like to see. And I think we can all agree on that. Is not thinking, right? Sometimes guys will get a little bit too hot, kind of too impatient, and they'll just start, doing things like that. He saw the crease and just took off, and it showed, right? It showed. But I also want to kind of talk about Peanut. Didn't realize that was the nickname, but Dwight Phillips got a touchdown. That's also somebody I'd like to see more of moving forward because that dude is fast.
Yeah, and I'll touch on just a couple things. Dwight Phillips, love to see him getting some touches. Love to see this point in the season some guys, freshmen, that are kind of coming to life. Again, do you right. Let Dylan Bell get some runs. I like him on some jet motion stuff. I like him on some jet motions though, not even like out of the gun, out of under center where you're running the jet motion behind. It's a true handoff. Makes that a lot harder to attack as the defensive end. Gives you less time to adjust. And then got to talk to my man Jeff Kobe, time to fire Eberflus and Waldron. He's talking about Chicago Bears for y'all that don't follow me and Jeff, big Bears fans. I think the loss this week for sure. Time to clean house after the season. Don't really love that. Kind of been the trend in Chicago where you fire the head coach and the OC a year after they take a first round quarterback. Hasn't worked out the past 2 years or the past 2 times. We'll kind of see. Jeff, what are you watching? Watching the election kind of roll in the background.
Oh man, wasn't expecting to talk about that, but either way, guys, it's a busy Tuesday night. I mean, so we appreciate everybody that's tuning in and watching with us, listening to us talk some Georgia football. Much appreciated. Right? I'm glad probably everybody's multitasking too. I mean, it is what it is, though. But yeah, no, I want to talk more about this. Excuse me. Defensively, another game. I felt like we kind of played a little bit down compared to Texas, right? Texas was a really extraordinary game. Felt like the edge play on the run game, they were able to hit some of the edges. Still, nonetheless, they didn't really capitalize on it as much as they could have. I thought we made some good plays. What are your overall thoughts and the takeaways from the defensive side of the ball? I know we've kind of emphasized the offense, but what are your thoughts on the defense Saturday? What were your takeaways from there?
Yeah, I think that we've talked about this too, and I'm no expert on inside linebacker play, but I think I definitely have some questions sometimes when we give up a lot of run and we give up some things inside. Where our middle linebackers are at times. I know that they are making plays, and I know, like everything, it's an 11-man defense, so you can't put all the blame on 2 people. But definitely think that it's time to kind of see somebody step up. I think Raylan Wilson, big time name, CJ Allen, big time name. Both of them just have to. Even Jalen Walker, such an elite edge rusher that we're kind of playing in a hybrid role back there as well. Got to see it against the run. I think all of them are great against the pass. I just need to see somebody, strap up, take it to somebody's chin. And then the key to that is then shed the block and make the tackle. I've seen Raylan Wilson plenty of times lead up into a hole, hit the guard beautifully. The problem is then he's blocked. Like I'm glad you filled that hole, but now you're blocked. I need you to hit that hole and make the tackle. That's the big thing where I'd like to see it. So
I see. Do you right saying secondary getting beat? Honestly, this game really wasn't much of the secondary getting beat. It was you had the busted coverage in the early part of the game, right? Starks, I guess, got caught looking, but at the same time, before the snap, he was communicating a lot. He was doing a lot of hand motions that play. And honestly, I'm not going to make an excuse for this, but I do think that maybe having Dan Jackson and Joe Aguero out for that first half because of the targeting calls played a role there. You get those guys' communication seems to be on point. And also keep in mind the context of that, right? That comes off of the first turnover. So, typically speaking, I'm not, like I said, I'm going to defend it slightly, but I'm not going to make excuses for it too much. I do think, when you get put on the field very rapidly, there's a lot of communication, a lot of chaos at least that first play until you get on the field, that first snap, and things slow down. So it's just kind of coincidental timing that they take a deep shot while he's trying to set up the defense from the safety position. Did you see anything different, or was that just or is it just what I saw?
My only argument with it would be the fact that day 1, day 2 install, a big thing Georgia did, under Jim Chaney, under Todd Monken, we try to do it, under Bobo as well, is big impact changes in the game, big momentum swings. You want to capitalize on this quickly. The moment They got the turnover. My next thought is watch the shot play, because what's better than getting an interception and a touchdown in 2 plays? Nothing.
I mean, we've seen that happen with 21. Remember 21 when we had we had the Nolan Smith fumble, right? And then you take the shot to Kieras. And so especially in this game, right? Well, especially in this game. Well, yeah, I mean, that too. Florida, for me, was the one that you watch out for, because this is a momentum game, right? Like, if you think about it, right? Like I said earlier, so I forgot who, I think it was Do You Right with Comment or High Top, excuse me. We were tied with 7-8 minutes in the game. 20, we were tied 20-20. And then all of a sudden, you get the momentum and you put 2 scores on the board. And that's all it is, right? That it's the true testament of this game. It's the momentum swing. Who gets the momentum swing? Just worked out in our favor there, right? But at the same time, though, I'm looking at the secondary, and yes, that busted coverage. But outside of that, though, Kobe, and while that's not a good look on that one, so I'll give that. Outside of that, I felt like everything was fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first half, I mean, like you're saying, they kick 2 field goals. They throw 1 big ball on you, and then they score a rushing touchdown late. The rushing touchdown late's inopportune, but I guess at that point, as a defense, you had played well enough that your offense should have had a 2, maybe 3 touchdown lead. I mean, I think me and you both can agree that game could have easily started 10-14 nothing Georgia after the first 2 drives. It's kind of the fact that it doesn't, that puts the question mark in everybody's head. That's where plays kind of make you start getting tight. Because all of a sudden, if you're up 14-0 after 2 drives, I think Carson's a little more relaxed. I think your defense is a little more relaxed. Maybe you don't all of a sudden give up that big ball after an interception, but instead you've only kicked 1 field goal, and now all of a sudden they've thrown a touchdown over the back of your head, and it's 7-3 them, in a game that really you should have been leading, and leading by a couple scores. So that's, again.
Yeah, I mean, and really the turnovers gave them the field goal. Like the turnovers got them into field goal range immediately, basically, right? So, you look at the context in that, and that does play a part in it too. And you also put your defense. Well, no, 100% agree on that one. Yeah, that's a perfect example, not Georgia related, but yeah. Not Georgia's impact.
Not Georgia, Florida related, but in the Georgia-Texas game, to me, most of Texas points came off our turnovers as well. They didn't drive the field.
And it just by default puts your defense in a bind, right? Just depending on where the field position goes, right? But at the same time, right, that's just something that you come out of a bye week though, and you throw 3 turnovers again, and it's just, at this point, it's justifying a lot of fans and their perception on Carson Beck starting to become a liability. I think he's the best option we have, but I can understand the logic when you've seen multiple games now with at least 2 picks. I think you've had 3 games with 3 picks. You've thrown 11 in the past 5. Like, that is extremely uncalled for, and that's unacceptable. He knows that, though. He knows that.
I think what stings is just a little bit of concern that you can't even bench him for 1 drive. Like, hey, man, sit over here, catch your breath, get your head right, focus in.
See it from a different perspective.
We're going to give you 1 drive off. But the fact that we can't confidently do that, I think, does raise some concern. I mean, even kind of like that Texas game, they throw an arch. At no point was Quinn being benched the rest of the game. That was, hey, man, catch your breath. You got your bell rung on that cat blitz. We're going to let you clear your head for a minute, and we're going to go out and reset. And what did Quinn do? He came out in the second half. He played really well. I think that sometimes, especially as a kid, I mean, you got to realize, Carson is pretty old for a college quarterback, but he's still 22 years old. Like, the lights get bright. Everything that we sit here and talk about and think about, Carson Beck talks about and thinks about in his own head some too. I was a first-round draft pick last year. I came back to try to win a Heisman, to try to be a higher first-round draft pick, try to be QB1. You're not winning a Heisman. You're not a first-round quarterback. You're in a worse position right now than you were if you'd have left after the season last year. All of those things kind of snowball on somebody. It's a lot of pressure. It's the one kind of thing that you got to be able to shake off, though. And especially in this back half of the year, man, who cares? That's the thing the coaches have to say. That's the thing he has to believe is nobody cares that you're not going to win a Heisman. Nobody cares maybe you are not a first rounder. Everybody's going to care if you win a national championship. You will always care about that.
I agree with you. We've sat here and we've talked about this a lot, right? And Do You Right does have a good point, right? This weekend's game will tell us a lot. From my perspective, though, right? Like you said, the drive off, though, it lets you sit there and see from a different perspective. It's not necessarily a detriment, right? I think it's your mindset on how you go about it. Right? A lot of kids see that you're getting benched, and it's like, oh, that's it. That's it. It's like, no. Seeing it from the sideline is a whole lot different than seeing it from your actual position on the field. And I think that can help. But again,
I feel like you're saying, getting benched, taking off one drive isn't getting benched. That's just giving you a mental break. Like you're saying, like people now want to, keyboard warriors, like benching. Brother, you want us to play a whole game without him? I don't think so. No way.
I wouldn't trust it. Would not trust it. But no, ultimately though, I'm looking ahead, like you said earlier though, right? You despite the turnovers, you still win by 14 points, right? You win by 14 in Jacksonville. By the way, I'm so glad we're moving away for a couple years. My God, that gives them opportunity to replace that grass, that turf. It's garbage.
I didn't realize we go back next year and then we move away.
Yeah, 26 and 27 is when you do the Jackson, or excuse me,
I thought this was the last year until the game, and they were like, "We'll be back next year." I was like,
I'm just so tired of. I'm so tired of it, man. Like that's 2 years in a row we've seen players get hurt. Like think about Shamar James last year pregame, right? And then now you got DJ Lagway going down. Hell, really, if you look at it, I don't know how much of the field was a part of this, but if you remember, dude, Florida guys were just dropping like flies.
They had 3 DBs get hurt, I think, on one drive.
In one drive, yeah. That's, like I said, I think they came back in the game regardless. Though, like you see what I mean? It just shows you a physical game, but at the same time, like the Lagway thing to me, it was just like, dude, enough is enough. Like this grass is like it's garbage. It's garbage, man. I don't understand.
It almost looked oversaturated, and I know it didn't rain in Jacksonville, but like the way it was sliding out from underneath people and tearing, it looked like it was too wet. And so just always interesting to see, like, did the grounds crew overwater it? Are they trying to get it to grow because they have a Jags game coming up? But, you get spoiled in a place like Athens with elite grass management when you go and you play somewhere the grass is long, it's dead, it's too moist. It's hurting people like it was.
Yeah, no doubt. I know we talked about this on the preview show, but it's just something that it's something's got to change. I hope it does, but I just don't know when it will. But any final thoughts on this game before we move on to some other Georgia stuff?
Nope, I'm ready to put it to bed.
Me too. It's 364, at least 365 more days of Dawgs on top. If you're a Gator fan.
Final thought, and it's a question to you. When we play in 360 more days or whatever, will Billy Napier still be the head coach at the University of Florida? Yes or no?
You know what? If you asked me this at the beginning of the season, I would have an easily definite answer.
Right.
However, part of me wonders if the Lagway injury. Well, see, this is also interesting, and I'm trying not to beat around the bush. I'm trying to explain myself. My logic went from yes, he's going to be gone, to no, he'll be back because of the Lagway injury. But if he's healthy and they play him and they still lose, I think he can go, right? I thought the Lagway injury was going to be the hey, it happens. You were playing good, like give you a shot, right? Like Lagway is going to be a good quarterback for them. I'm just saying.
I think right now, as it sits, I think he's back. I think he's trending towards being back.
There's a large dude. They still got a large buyout too, and they're paying. I think they're still paying buyouts.
I just think that if I had to bet right now, like you're saying, 2 or 3 games ago, I'd have said he's gone. Something telling me right now that he's trending towards being back. We'll see. The portal, it's the great equalizer, man. You could lose the whole entire roster if you fire him. So just gotta be careful.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff at stake there for doing that. But I mean, at the same time, we'll see. But no, I think my answer. I think he'll be back. I think Florida will let him get one more year. Keep in mind, Florida had a absolute gauntlet of a schedule. So the fact that they're pushing around bowl eligibility, I think they can get it. Listen, I think they'll get to 5 wins. It'll still be a losing season, but it's definitely not the 2 or 3 wins that people were expecting. Right?
I mean, it could be worse. You could be FSU right now.
Oh no, that's what I was getting at. It could be very bad.
You could be on your way to 2-10 as a preseason top 10. When's the last time that happened?
Never. I don't know if it did.
From 13-0 to 2-10.
To unconquered, to conquered by everybody. Yeah.
Even by SMU.
Yeah, I know, right? All right. Anyways, initial college football playoff rankings come out. Georgia Georgia is ranked 3rd, but they are in the 2 seed. Honestly, I'm looking at the 3, right? I'm looking at the 3rd place ranking. Ohio State beats Penn State, right? Georgia somewhat has a kind of ugly game, even in a win. If you want to look at it that way, I'm fine with it. I don't really care. I think the seeding is more important anyway. All right. Georgia just got to go win out. That's all you got to do and go from there. But overall, your thoughts on the playoff rankings?
I think my biggest thought, and I don't know how long it has to stay this way, is I think now that we're down to 4 major conferences, you can't do the auto buy for a conference champion. I think that's the biggest issue. I think the fact that BYU can be ranked 9th in the initial poll, but be the 4 seed because they're going to win the Big 12 championship, possibly projection-wise. I think that's the part that's going to be a little ridiculous, because what happens if Colorado continues to climb and is 10-2, hasn't really beaten anybody all year. Something crazy happens, Big 12 championship, beats BYU. All of a sudden you're telling me they're the 4 seed? I just think that over like a 1-loss Oregon, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden Ohio State beats Oregon in another 1-point game, and Oregon's been number 1 all year. You're telling me they go to 5 and they don't get a bye just because they lost the wrong game at the wrong time to a better opponent?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't agree with that. I think that 1 through 4 should still be the 4 best teams. I don't care if that's Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, 4 buys. Whatever. I just don't agree with the automatic bids being the buys.
Yeah, no, I get it. Because, like, for instance, right, you look at the top 4 seeds, you got in order, you've got Oregon, Georgia, Miami, BYU, right? Now, I'm not discrediting BYU. BYU's played really good football for what it's worth, but Ohio State would beat them. I think Texas would beat them. So, yes, I agree with your point. I understand you want to try to make it somewhat, I guess, fair would be the word. But
I guess
to an extent, though,
play a better schedule. I mean, Georgia's playing number 1 strength of schedule. Alabama's playing number 11 strength of schedule. Notre Dame's playing the 103rd strength of schedule. To me, the new playoff, you shouldn't schedule anybody worth a damn. Go 12-0, and make it. I mean, that's what BYU possibly could do. Like you're saying.
But yeah, I mean, to that point, though, right? I'm looking at it in a sense of you kind of almost hurt yourself by playing in a better conference.
100%.
If you really think about it, and it's not. I mean, it's not Georgia's fault. You know what I mean? I guess you could try to point blame if you really wanted to do the research. But if you look at non-con, man, think about non-conference schedule. That is where that shit matters too, right? Because like, if you look at Georgia's non-conference, right, you're always going to have Georgia Tech, but you've got Clemson on there, right? Now you got two other ones. You got UMass and another, I guess you could say cupcake, if you will, but still. But when you look at Wake Forest and you look at Middle Tennessee and all the other teams on Ole Miss's slate per se, right? Just using them as an example because they're our upcoming opponent here soon. Things aren't the same. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately though, I think it'll play itself out, right? The games will be played. Looking at Georgia, they were playing being the 2 seed. This is where it got interesting for me, and it just makes you wonder, right? What if it stuck? But you would be playing the winner of the Penn State Notre Dame, which wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that, right? I thought that'd be pretty cool to see if that happens. But at the same time, I look at it in a sense of, I just want to play. I just want to win a championship. I would love to see that again. You know what I mean? Especially the 12 team. Because if Georgia wins out, goes to the playoffs and wins the national title with this schedule, buddy, that's one of the best seasons I think we could say we've ever seen.
Yeah, and I think always the first year of doing things for whatever reason, football gods, whatever, tend to work out in your favor. I remember the first year of the 4-team playoff, you got 3 undefeated teams and 1 team that's 1 loss. In years past, the team that wins the Natty would have finished 4th, never would have had a chance, and you'd have had a 13-0 team got left out of the national championship as well. It's kind of like this year. I think it's a very even playing field. I mean, Oregon is 9-0. They have a 1-point win and a 3-point win against 2 teams in the top 12. Georgia, obviously, lose to Alabama, has struggled with some teams. Miami looks like Miami reminds me of FSU, honestly. Like, it's the Cam Ward show. It was the Travis Hunter show. It's the Cam Ward show. If he don't go, they don't go. And then there's some cool teams, kind of like Cincinnati was a couple years ago. You know what I mean? Indiana is that way. They're hot. They're streaky. They got a coach that's kind of running things his way, and it's turning out well for them. I think those will be fun games down the stretch. But then I also think that there are going to be some games that aren't not worth playing, but there are going to be more blowouts in this style of playoff, just because I think some teams are going to get in because their schedule allows it to. At this point, I am way off the Penn State hype train after what I saw this past weekend.
Yeah, they look. I mean, to be fair, in our picks, me and you both picked them to finally right that wrong, and they did not.
And I'm way off of them because of it. Not scoring an offensive touchdown in 2 straight games against Ohio State. You just got to look yourself in the mirror and go, what are we doing? How are we expecting to win a game if we can't score an offensive touchdown? You're not a playoff team. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're still going to be there. I think they still have that. It's that right there. Them in Ohio State, them in Michigan is basically Georgia versus Bama for the Big Ten. It really is just a little bit different because, right, we've played very close games. They can't score a touchdown the past couple games. That's different. You get what I mean. But the concept, right? The concept applies. Ultimately, though, you look at SMU sitting there first team out, A&M first or second team out, right? Georgia's still got to play Tennessee. Texas still got to play A&M. Alabama at the 11 seed still got to play LSU this week. There's still so much that can flip and be changed and things like that. There's so many moving pieces still, right?
It's a scrambled egg between like
I think there was a report saying that
teams
you can
right
see like
now.
20 teams still have a shot. Now,
Well,
what percentage of that? I don't know, but I think I saw a
like,
report. I think on 3, maybe like 20 teams could possibly make it in regards to have the chance to do it.
yeah, I would say,
I
you know,
mean, it's still wide open.
LSU Alabama is a win or go home game. I think LSU wins, they're in. Alabama wins, they're in. I think Texas A&M in a couple of weeks is going to be that way. I think a lot of people are kind of harping on the fact that Texas doesn't have any great caliber wins at this point. If they lose to Texas A&M last game of the year, that's going to sting, kind of going down the stretch. And then obviously we have a big game against Ole Miss and a big game against Tennessee. You beat Ole Miss this week. I think they're out of it. I think you beat Tennessee next week. They're going to be kind of fringe, maybe an 11
They'll be
seed.
close, yeah.
They're going to be an 11 seed-ish. It kind of depends what happens with Alabama, I think. I think LSU beats Alabama. We beat Tennessee. I think Tennessee probably still squeaks in there. I think that's what's so exciting is a lot of these close races kind of, between that 8 to 18 to 20 spot, you're going to have a lot of those teams continue to play these last 4 weeks. So always an exciting time.
Yeah, no, I know we'll do our picks for the week on the preview show for Ole Miss, but the SEC, this might be the week of the SEC because outside of SEC games, let's just say I'll be watching the SEC games, and I don't necessarily think I might be watching as many non-SEC games. There's a couple, but yeah, just gonna leave that there.
Yeah, I think the next big one will be like Ohio State, Indiana is a huge one to watch. I think that's in a week or two, if I remember right.
Michigan's got who else is it?
Michigan has Indiana this week.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a big one. Just like kind of like I saw somebody say, like Indiana's only won like 7 games all time against Michigan. That's a logo game where the logo tells you should pick Michigan. But, if you see what's been out on the field this year, especially if Indiana's held at quarterback, I think Cignetti gets it done. Obviously, we'll talk about that more on Thursday or whenever we do the next show. But there are a couple of those games left that are kind of going to be logo games where you think one way and what has been on the field kind of tells you a different story. Army's still got to play Notre Dame. I think it's going to be funny that at the end of the year, Notre Dame's best 2 wins could be Army and Navy. Legitimately. I mean, they could be.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see Ashton Jeanty in a playoff game if that happens, because it's going to be interesting to see the team that has to stop that man. But, I mean, the scenarios are still ongoing, right? But for now, like I said, Georgia holds at number 2 seed in the ranking, right? The number 2 seed, 3rd in the poll, I guess you could say. Just take it for what you will. But let's continue. We attested to it. Reynaldo did up at the very beginning. There is some fire in this recruiting for Georgia. Georgia picks up since the Florida game, since Saturday, picks up a 2025 flip and a 2026 receiver. We're going to talk a little bit about those guys. First one we'll talk about a 2025 corner. Rayshawn Dinkins was a former Georgia Tech commit, flips to Georgia. On3 has him as 347th overall, still a 4-star, 5'11", 185. And one of the things I think is interesting is also he's a teammate of, of Elijah Griffin, if I'm not mistaken. You kind of needed that, right? Because Shamari Earls decommits, right? Goes to flips to Michigan. And I think that's a good flip to get. I think Rayshawn's kind of been on the radar for Georgia. And to get him in the class, I think that'll be nice. Keeping guy in state too. I like it if you watch this tape. I like what he can bring. I think he's a thumper. He can thump, but he can cover too. Kind of that blend, right? Maybe not a 6-foot frame like people want to stereotype our corners to be. But again, if you're 5'11", Kirby's going to look at you like you better bring something to the table. And I think Rayshawn does that. So do not look at the ranking. More than likely, we'll get the Georgia bump. Let's be honest. Right? He'll get the Georgia bump. We'll see how that goes.
I think, too, you look at the kid that's heading to Michigan, wish him all the best. But, I've been around since 2016 watching Kirby recruits and stuff. I can't think of many recruits that were DBs that decommitted, flipped, whatever, with a lot of success. I guess I would have to dig deep into my thought bubbles to think of, a DB that flipped to a school that has gone on to have just an unbelievable career. Obviously it came close with Caleb Downs at safety. And we've lost some guys through the portal that have gone on to pretty good careers. Tyreek Stevenson, 2nd round pick. I think AJ Harris having a pretty good year at Penn State. But to truly leave,
he's definitely having a good year at Penn State.
Yeah, but to truly leave and go play DB somewhere else, if you can think of anybody, love to hear it. But there's not a really high profile DB recruit that I can think of that I'm just like, man, wouldn't it have been nice if he wouldn't have flipped from us, kind of thing.
From a flip perspective, I don't know. I'd have to sit here and just continue to think about that. But transferring is a different scenario too, right?
Transfer sometimes those guys are misses. Jaheim Singletary has a miss. Number one cornerback in the class, got to take him. He's a miss. Whatever.
Wasn't that crazy though? That was wild. But no, I think he'll help out with the class too, right? I don't see this class being huge on DBs as much as other positions. Obviously, we look at right D-line as the big, the big part of this class. Justice Terry, the one we're waiting on to see if he commits to Georgia. There's possibility for even more bodies there. You've already got Isaiah Gibson, Elijah Griffin. D-line, there's other positions that are bigger in this, and that's completely understandable, right? But it's nice to get those guys, especially Warner Robbins down there. I think South Central Georgia probably. It's nice to keep those guys in state, I would say. And especially if you're staying in state, not to your rival in state. So, yeah, got famous said he subscribed just to say go Gators, even hit the like button. We appreciate you. Hopefully, if you just tuning in, feel free to go back. We'll talk about the recap. But, I think for what it's worth, though, Florida, I'll tell you so far, they've kind of exceeded my expectations because I didn't have high expectations at all coming into the season, to be honest. But
hey, man,
that's neither here nor there.
Talk about keeping your coach around, whether you like it or not. I think he may deserve one more year. It's tough sledding. I think that's the other hard thing right now is, Signetti at Indiana is really just making it even harder. It's tough sledding out here. I mean, the portal, NIL, rebuilding a program, it's hard.
Famous is in the YouTube chat, so for anyone on other platforms or audio listening, so I'm just giving an example. I want to ask him this question. Is it me or your athletic directors holding your whole program football-wise back? I'm gonna give him a moment to process and answer that. But I think for me, when you look at Florida like that, man, and we'll get to the other commit here in just a moment, I promise. I felt like the hiring process that they've went through, right? Mullen, Muschamp, right? This didn't hit, right? But just, I see he said Binky quit, LOL. He's just kidding, but he hurt. Trolling. Thanks for the super chat there, Famous. But no, I just think the Strickland, man, I think if you let go of Napier, this is the time Florida as a school needs to get rid of the athletic director too. But so and Famous agrees. He's definitely got to go. I mean, hey, at least I know what I need to see. But everyone feels that way. Okay, so we're not alone. Now I will say, for Famous's sake, I hope he stays around. Him and Napier, they can stay. We'll pay their contract to stay around.
Like you're saying, the next one, I think if you do if you do fire Napier this year, you got to go with the AD as well. The next AD and the next head coach, they've got to get more than 3 years. You're gonna have to give them. You're gonna have to give somebody the keys for 5 years and say, you have time. Let it kind of develop, because you've been so many. This would be like, I think, your third 3 or 4 and done in a row. It just guts you after a while. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, Famous says that you got to stay at least one more year too. I mean, ultimately, if you let go of the AD, I think it's time to just clean house completely. But I'm tired of watching. I mean, as a Georgia fan, I don't really care. But conceptually, it makes no sense to be impatient like that, because you're just paying buyouts. Nobody wants to come coach there because they know that there's no leash to succeed. Either you succeed or you just sink in immediately. You know what I mean? And I think it applies to about any level, really, too. You've seen that at the NFL level too, Kobe. You know that.
Well, it just makes things very difficult for up and coming coaches to want to jump on. If you're my easiest example is Glenn Schumann. Don't want him to go to Florida, but if you move on from Napier and you have a job opening, you would have to think one of your first calls would be a coach who's been here since the beginning of what Kirby's built, kind of similar to, Kirby at Alabama. You would call Glenn Schumann, say, hey, we'd love for you to replicate kind of what's going on in Athens down here in Gainesville. I'm not saying he wouldn't go right now. He may jump at the opportunity to be a head coach in the SEC. I just think he thinks about it for a minute and goes, am I willing to risk my entire career that I've built up until this point making Florida successful? It's kind of what Billy Napier's done. He has built up all of this as an assistant, as a head coach at ULL, and it's come to a head at Florida. Can you make it or can you not? Those are just big risks that coaches take, that, they build up something about themselves for so long. They take a big risk. If it doesn't pan out, you kind of have to start back over. You're someone's analyst again for a year or two. Then you're someone's position coach for a year or two. Then you're someone's
going
coordinator.
through the rehab cycle, huh? Going through the rehab process over and over again. Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, we'll see. I think so. This will be the last comment on Florida before we go talk about the next commit. But excuse me, Famous says that given the challenges Billy had coming in, and you give him 5 years, you got to at least let him try 4. That makes sense to me. I mean, you've seen the culture change, right? They're trying to recruit. You know what I mean? It also doesn't help for them that Miami just is otherworldly this year, right? Staying in state. Georgia's constantly going in to pull Florida kids. Ohio State will continuously pull Florida kids. It's a hard state to keep talent in, especially when you're talented like that. It's the same with Georgia, but Georgia this year is keeping those elite top guys, right? Especially the ones that they won't. And that comes with winning on the field. I think that is really what benefits that in that regard. But we move on to the next commitment, which happened earlier today, and that's Vance Spafford, a 2026 receiver out of Mission Viejo High School in California. California love like Tupac. Listen, I'll tell you what I love about this kid is his speed. Laser 4.35 at a camp, I think it was. 5'10", 175, 73rd nationally in the 26 class. It's a little bit early, but still top 100 receiver. Like I said, 5'10", 175, might have a little chance to grow, but immediately thinking speed, right? And Coley getting that speed, you can't teach that. You see what I'm saying? Can't teach that speed.
No, 100%. Can't teach running 4.35s. I don't care how good you are. You just can't.
Sometimes, you can hold on. How about this? You can teach it, but some things are just given to you, like having the ability to be that fast.
Yeah,
like you can train speed. You can train it. You know what I mean?
You can be a 4.6 guy, and we can make you a 4.5 guy. But
that's what I mean. Yeah,
you
teach the technique.
Very few people are training down into the 4.3s.
Yeah, no, that's fast. Honestly, that's something that I'd like to see. I know the size it's interesting. I just think that first things first, white receivers. Not saying it's going to be. Don't do it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the Lad
Kind
McConkey
of reminds me of
comparison.
Lad McConkey.
Oh God Almighty! Why did I know that was coming? God. But no, I look at it right here a little bit. Could be an exciting white candidate. Not saying he will be. Said he can be. Got to stick him. Got to land him and sign him first. 2026 is a little ways away.
He's going to have to show me something on the field before he gets that stamp of approval.
I mean, look at Cash Jones.
Stamped.
Oh yeah, dog.
Chaz Chandler. Everybody likes to hate on him.
Dog.
Stamped.
Got to earn a little bit of that early. Yeah, co-defensive player of the week, by the way. SEC defensive player of the week. Couple sacks, you know what I mean?
Deserves it, 100%.
Yeah, where's the Chaz haters at now? Do you hear anything? I don't. Nope. Thought so. But no, I think, getting him in this class early, though, getting Vance in this class, that was a name that kind of came up quick, too, right? In a good way. Get him on, and just watch him grow, right? Like, I don't know if he hits the 6 foot mark, but I'd like to see maybe 5'11". But if he's 5'10", you better be shifty as shit. But I know he's fast, so you can work with that.
For sure. I mean, the fact that he has a committable offer this early in the 2026 cycle tells you everything you need to know, period. I mean, that's where it stands for me. If you have a committable offer in football season of your junior year of high school to the University of Georgia, to any major Division I university, especially a top 10 one, it is what it is. You're a ball player for sure. You're not taking the guys that are fringe bubble guys right now.
Again, that 26 class, man, like we lose Jared Curtis, right? And that's kind of a sting, but then you get a receiver back in, right? Georgia doesn't have a 26 kid yet at quarterback, or he might be the first or second commit. I think we only got 1 or 2. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I think you keep him around, right? On3 had him committing over teams like Ole Miss and Oregon. Your big teams, right? So a legit kid, legit speed, and at that point, you keep him in the class, and then get him on campus, and go. Famous asks, what's our X names? You can go to our website and you'll find it. Everything right there. It's a plug for the website. How about that?
Got to tell him the website. The website.
Oh, no, it's right here. It's down there. Oh, you can see it, sir. But if you're listening, DGDpodcast.com.
With a www in front.
My name's Harrison, and I'm fading Keon at 24/7. Okay. That's what I saw. But no, other than that, though, man, Georgia is looking to close out this 25 class, right? Less than a month now before, I don't even know if you want to call it an LI or signing a letter of intent, because you don't do that anymore. I guess you're signing your financial aid agreements is what it would be. That's going to be interesting. I'm just going to let that be known. That's going to be very interesting. I don't know what to make of it. Just don't. Any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up for tonight, man?
No, great show. Put Florida to bed. Great game, great rivalry. I think it was game number 100, if I remember right, in the rivalry, possibly. Pretty close.
Maybe.
Hate it getting out of Jacksonville. I don't hate it getting out of Jacksonville. I hate that we got robbed of a home and home. I think every Florida fan should be mad about that. I think every Georgia fan should be mad about that. There's no reason that we're doing a Tampa and Atlanta. That does not excite me whatsoever. Put games on campuses when you can, 100%. We already play enough neutral site games.
Georgia Tech's going to be doing that shit too, by the way. You remember that?
Yeah. And Tech, I understand, it's a one-time thing for Tech, at least for this season, but man, this is a game for the students. This is a game for fans. Where else would you rather be on a Saturday in your own stadium, experiencing game day atmosphere, or like down in Tampa in the Bucs Stadium playing? That didn't get anybody going. I mean, neither does Mercedes.
Hold on, wait a minute. All right, so let's think about this. Going to Tampa, going to Raymond James. How many Dog fans are going to dress up as Captain Jack Sparrow?
Wonderful pull there.
And get on the boat.
100% wonderful pull knowing what Tampa Stadium's called.
I'm just saying, I mean, how many Georgia fans are you going to know going down there, getting drunk as shit with Jack Sparrow, dressed up as Jack Sparrow on the boat, and letting them fire off the cannons?
Nope. Hey, man.
It'd be I'm glad it would be a one-off, I guess. It would be a cool experience. But
sure.
at the same time, when you think about this,
I'm worried about all the Georgia fans at the Grove this weekend in Ole Miss. Things get sloppy over there. You gotta watch them.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I think kind of looking at it though, right? Also, if you haven't heard, Tennessee game time announced for the 16th, I think it is, night game. I'm expecting it to be extremely loud. Gonna be fun to listen to, right? Gonna be listened to. What are your thoughts on that? I'm excited for that being a night game.
Yeah, it love night games. They are just the chef's kiss.
All right, I'm gonna wrap it up on this. As a former player, did you like night games?
100%. They're so cool. I'm telling you, they're just fun. They're fun experiences, especially after time changes. They're a little crisp, cool in the air. And then some of like the funnest things at Georgia games, like light up Samford in the fourth quarter, the red lights, all that. Those are all things you don't get to experience often. I saw something the other day. This is only going to be our third true night game since the start of the 2021 season. That's 4 football seasons. That's
Crazy,
3 true night games in 4 football seasons. That's ridiculous. So I got to enjoy them when you can. It is what it is.
It's crazy. I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, I'm also looking forward to previewing this game coming up Saturday with Ole Miss. There's a lot to talk about.
All right,
I'm not going to spoil too much more. We're not going to do that too much more, but we're going to catch y'all on the preview show. So make sure you tune into that. We'll be here. First things first, before we leave, make sure to hit that like button. Follow us on Twitter. If you're listening on podcast, we did not forget about you. Leave us a rate and review us. Let us know. Can you believe I'm trying to work on cussing?
I'm proud of you working on cussing.
I'm trying.
Bring us no cussing for Lent. This is a clean show for Lent in the spring.
You funny. You funny. You're funny. Keon, you got to get Keon to buy that more than I would.
Yeah, Keon too. Keon, I'm thinking no drinking for Lent. That's what I'm thinking Keon's big thing. We may get him going. No Modelo's for Keon. Cerveza.
Hold on. Here's how you know you're the OG and you're listening to this and watching this. In the comments, right? If you're listening, I hope you can come to our YouTube channel to do this. Drop a comment. Let us know what we should do for Lent. I don't know. I have to do some research on that. Let us know what we should do for Lent. I'm just saying, it'd be funny. I just want to see somebody drop comments because it'd be hilarious.
You've listened way late to the show, and we appreciate you for that.
Yeah, if you do that, then we'll know you're the real ones.
Just
okay.
Type in no Modelo's. Perfect.
Keon might cry.
He's actually probably having him a 12-pack of Modelo's right now. That's why he's not here.
Maybe. Not condoning alcohol, but yeah.
See you, buddy.
With that being said, I'm Robert. That's Keon. This is the DGD Podcast. Like, subscribe, rate. Keon, you don't hear? Sipping on a Modelo. That's Kobe. Keon's in spirit. But no, with that being said, have a great one. Go Dogs.
See ya.